Okay, we're in our next lesson, and our next lesson starts with different numbering systems. And the one you see at the top of the page is the Roman numeral system. And those are some questions that I will ask you on the test. And so, you know, for your Roman numerals, the letter I represents 1, the letter V represents 5, the letter X represents 10, L is 50, C is 100, D is 500, and M is 1,000. So the first thing I'll ask you from The first thing I'll ask you from this section is to go back and forth between Roman numerals to regular numeration and our regular numeration and vice versa. Okay, so I want to start with this one, MC, MX, CVII. Okay, so M means 1,000. So this piece right here means 1,000. Now, the next thing you see is C. So at first you think of C being 100, but technically, if you look at it, this one's 100, and this one's 1,000. So if you have a lower letter in front of a bigger letter, that means subtract. Okay, so if you see a C in front of an M, that means you're going to take 100 away from 1,000, and so these two together would give you 900. Okay, so anytime you see, for example, if you saw X in front of L, that means you'd have to subtract. If you see a lower number in front of a higher number, that means to subtract. Okay, so let's look at this next one. The next one I see is 10. Okay, so then the next one I see after 10 is 100. Okay, that's a lower number in front of a higher number. So a lower number in front of a higher number tells me to subtract. So 100 minus 10 would give me 90. Okay, the next one I see is 5. And the next one I see is 1 and 1. Great. So now we can go from there. I know my answer is going to be 1,990, 567. And that's what it would look like. That's my answer. Okay, at the time that I'm making this video, we're about to hit Super Bowl LVI. Okay, so let's see what that is. L is 50. V is 5. And I is 1. So LVI is 56. Okay, for a second there I thought I Googled the wrong Super Bowl, but yes, the one that's upcoming right now is 56. Okay, so that's how you're going to transfer from Roman numerals to regular numbers. Okay, but then what if I ask you to go in reverse, and I gave you 974 as a regular number, and I asked you to put that as a Roman numeral? Okay, so what I would do is I would start with M. Okay, so M is 1,000. So the way I'm going to get 900 is I'm going to take off 100 from 1,000. Okay, so this would be 1,000 minus 100, and that's how that would start. Okay, so then you have 70. So 70 would be 50, 60, 70. So that's how you get 70. Now, the thing about Roman numerals is you can't have more than 3 in a row. Okay, so if you were thinking about the number 4, you could say, oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but Roman numerals don't work like that. You can't have more than 3 terms in a row. So if you're doing 4, what you know about 4 is it's 1 less than 5. So if you put a 5 in there, that would be 950, 60, 75. So to get 4, you would just put 1 in front of it. Okay, so again, this would be 900, this would be 70, and this would be 4. And so that's how you would do that one. Okay, at the bottom of the page you have Egyptian. You see where I marked out Babylonian. You do have Babylonian in your textbook. I am not going to ask you any of these. Unfortunately, the syllabus says, hey, show them all of these other other numeration systems. So I just wanted to show these to you, but they're not ones that I will ever ask you on a test or a quiz or a final or homework. But if you looked at the Egyptian markers, the symbol one stick is 1, and then the upside down U they call a yoke. Yoke is worth 10, and then what looks to me like a question mark, they call it a scroll. The scroll is worth 100. So if I tried to write 336 in the Egyptian model, it's going to be 3 scrolls, that gives me 300, 3 yokes gives me 30, and 6 staffs. And that's how that one would look. I'm not going to ask you that. More than likely, you already used the tally system. Let's think of the tally system like this. Okay, you are counting the number of students who had their paper signed this week. And so as they, maybe for a permission slip or something like that, so as they come in the door and show you your their slip, you go like this. So if you see that, you know you group them in groups of 5, and that's a really easy way for us to look at a count and see what it is really fast. We would see that this is 13 by just glancing at it. And looking at 13 in the tally marks is far easier than doing it this way. So let's say that the bus driver came out and said, "Hey, how many am I taking with me?" Then you'd have to actually count them out. Whereas if you looked at this side over here, you'll say, "Oh, you're taking 13." And so that's the benefit of the tally model. Not something I'll ask you, but just wanted to throw that at you. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is our regular numbering system, and we call that expanded notation. Now, what I wanted to point out first, and this is something I usually ask at some point, this is my units position. This is my tens. This is my hundreds. And this is my thousands. Okay, so place values are going to be really important, and you're going to need to know those. Okay, so if it asks you to write this in expanded notation, here's how it looks. 2 is in the thousands place. I'll explain what that means in a second. 5 is in the hundreds place. 7 is in the tens place. Okay, there we go. That's better. And 2 is in the units place. Okay, I'm having a little trouble with my marker, so let me start back over writing them. I'll even do it this way. That might make a little bit more sense for you. 5 is in the hundreds place. 7 is in the tens place. And 2 is in the units place. Okay, so that's how you kind of want to think about these. But the way that these units, tens, hundreds, the way that these work is that they are powers of 10. So for example, 10 to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is 1. So that represents 1 unit. 10 to the 1 represents 10 units because 10 to the 1 is 10. 10 squared is 100. 10 squared is 100, so that represents 100 units. And 10 cubed is 1,000, so that represents 1,000 units. So if we wrote this in the expanded notation, it would be 2 times 10 to the third. You'll also notice that it's 10 to the third because it has 1, 2, 3 zeros. This would be 5 times 10 to the second. It has 2 zeros. 7 times 10 to the 1, it has 1 zero, and 2 times 10. You'll say, but wait a second, it's not times 10. That's still our expanded notation in what our current, our positional numbering system, that's what it uses. But you'll notice that there's no 0 there, so you would put 10 to the 0. And your exponent rule right there is that anything to the 0 power is always 1. So that's why this piece right here equals 1. And that's how you would write something in expanded notation. Okay, let me look at my notes and see if there's anything I left off there. Okay, I think we're good with that.